landscape? What are the latest trends, challenges and opportunities? With the growth of e-wallets, digital banking and new technologies, what are the sectors' impact on the nation's move towards a cashless future? Malaysia's position as the regional leader, what's next for digital payments in Malaysia? This is Money Matters. Good evening and welcome to TV3. I'm Zahir Kelvin Ong Abdullah, and today we have an exciting discussion ahead. Joining us is the President of the Fintech Association of Malaysia, Wilson Bay. Wilson, welcome to Money Matters. It's a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you.
Can I start off by thank you. Can I start off by asking you what qualifies as fintech in a nutshell?
Sure. Fintech is defined as financial technology. It is a term which has been made very popular in the past decade, actually, in the past 10 years. And essentially, any form of innovation, especially digitalizations in the financial services, can be grouped under the overall umbrella of the definition of fintech. Today, you see cashless payment, digital insurance, remittances that can be done online, peer-to-peer lending, equity crowdfunding. There are many forms of financial technology evolutions and revolutions which has, in a way, democratized accessibility towards financial services. And Malaysia, we are at a prime spot to advance fintech development even further.
Right. So let's move on to what you mentioned here. You just said about the shift towards digital payments in Malaysia. So what are the key factors driving this shift towards digital payments, and how are emerging technologies like mobile payments and QR codes basically influencing this move?
If you look at the entire fintech development, I would say that the payment evolutions is prime and is very important to give rise to more fintech innovations. And the development of digital payment here in Malaysia and also in the region, I believe it is due to a couple of factors. Number one, it is due to the strong digital infrastructure that the country has put in place in terms of internet connectivity, in terms of access to mobile internet, in terms of mobile phone usage as well. So this is one of the key factors. Number two, of course, is in terms of the push from the key authorities. The third factor, I would say that, well, in the past 2-3 years post-COVID, in a way, with the adoptions of QR codes, with more citizens being comfortable to use mobile phone to transact online. And this has also given rise to cashless advancement in this country.
Right. Because the changing trend, I mean, looking at how things have worked, like you can go to even small markets, for example, even the Pasar Malam, if you will, and all of them accept payments on QR codes, because this was something not like that pre-COVID. So it was something that they had to embrace.
That's right. I think one key factor is actually the experience and also the trust factor. That is due to multiple experiences when they transact using their mobile phone. And a lot of the older folks, for example, my parents in their 60s in a small town, during COVID, they get to learn about different forms of transactions using their mobile phone. And they believe that this can be trusted, is a source of truth to them, and they have started embracing cashless transactions as well. Okay, so can we talk about market fragmentation and e-wallet providers, yeah? With over 50 e-wallet providers in the market, how do you see the fragmentation sort of playing out? And also, will the consolidation happen soon? And can smaller players basically thrive on innovation? Yes, there are many e-wallet players here in this market, and I definitely believe that there is consolidations being taken place, and you start to see that some of the leading e-wallet players, they have in fact morphed into something bigger. They have transformed into a digital bank or to be part of the digital bank consortium, which is able to offer beyond just e-wallet services, but also a full suite of financial services. And of course, I believe that the market is big enough for some of the smaller e-wallet providers to survive and also possibly thrive if they are able to target niche markets. For example, I've seen some of the e-wallet players, they are very specific in their offering. For example, offering financial products to students, to different communities. And that, I believe that with the in-depth kind of connections with the local communities, these are the smaller players which are able to potentially continue to thrive in this kind of market.
Okay, so what you're saying is that even though we have approximately 50 e-wallet providers, there's still room for more to come in?
There's still room for the smaller players to try, but the caveat is that they must be able to focus in the niche market that they serve.
Okay, can we move on to, I'm going to ask you about the cashless society vision, right? So, which you mentioned just now. So, Bank Negara's push for cashless society, of course, has been clear. So, what milestones have been reached and what further steps need to be taken to fully achieve this vision?
I believe that there was a recent announcement in the end of last year that was shared by the central bank under the 2022 to 2026 financial sector blueprint authorized by the central bank. That is a target for the country to achieve e-money transaction per capita of 400 per year. And as of last year, end of last year, this target has been achieved ahead of the target year of 2026. So in a nutshell, in summary, every adult in the country embraces e-money transaction daily throughout the year. And I believe that this marks a great milestone for the development of cashless society in Malaysia. But the significant development of cashless adoption is actually in data. As more populations embraces online transactions, there will be more avenues to access different form of data, which could potentially be used to develop better financial products and solutions.
Right. So, can we also move on to what you've mentioned regarding digital banks, like the impact of digital banks, right? So, the rise of digital banks in Malaysia has introduced new competition, obviously, in the financial sector. So how do digital banks fit into the existing ecosystem, and will they complement or disrupt traditional banks?
There are 5 digital banks which have officially gone live, 2 digital Islamic banks and 3 digital conventional banks, with the recent one which was announced most recently in the past 1 month. And I believe that the 5 new digital banks who have joined the industry would further complement the entire banking sector as a whole. Of course, I believe that there will also be competition in the sense that these players will exert more pressure for the incumbents and also the traditional players to step up in terms of innovation, in terms of providing digitalized solutions as well. So, in a nutshell, I believe it will be a win-win situation for the industry and also for the consumers.
Right. So, you mentioned just now Islamic banking as well. But
yes.
So, what's the difference between Islamic fintech and basically, can I just say this, normal fintech?
I think it boils down to some of the key principles. Similarly, in insurance, you have conventional insurance and you have takafu. And it boils down to some of the key principles on how some of these products are structured and also offered to the consumers.
Okay. We've just got to go for our first break. Wilson, hold that thought. We are going for a break, so we'll see you right after this. Welcome back to Money Matters on TV3. Before the break, we started a great conversation with Wilson Bay, President of the Fintech Association of Malaysia. Now let's dive right back in and continue our discussion. Now, Wilson, can I ask you about cybersecurity and consumer protection, right? As digital payment adoption rises, so do cybersecurity concerns, obviously. What measures should be prioritized to protect against fraud and ensure robust consumer protection?
There is definitely a rising concern in terms of cybersecurity, especially as more transactions go online and we almost read different scams, different issues on newspapers on a daily basis. And this is where I believe a concerted effort in educations and also in enhancing the entire cybersecurity structure for financial services is pertinent. And this is where the authorities have also come up with the National Fraud Portal. I think it's a joint effort led by PayNet and some of the industry players, which helps to tighten the entire security measure for transactions and also by applying predictive analytics and to ensure that the reversal of some of these illegal transactions can take place in a more rapid manner. I think this is one form. But what is equally, if not more important, is in terms of educations, because a lot of these scams and issues are arising due to negligence, ignorance, consumer behavior.
Negligence on the part of the consumer?
Yes.
Okay.
Ignorance as well, and so sometimes greed due to scams. And this is where a lot more educations and awareness programs has to be done throughout the nations.
Yeah, so what you're saying here is, correct me if I'm wrong, the main problem here obviously is the trust factor, because I think conventional banking is preferred by a lot of customers because of the lack of trust on the online security, because they have a perception that online security is risky because of many stories of fraud. So basically, how do you suggest that this can be overcome?
I think fraud is prevalent in both fintech and also traditional banking. Today, in terms of credit card scams, which is in a form, traditional financial product, is also very prevalent. So to me, fraud or scams in the financial services cut above multiple verticals, from fintech to traditional banking. And so what is important is boiled down to the educations, to ensure that the less educated segments of the society is well aware what are some of the risks involved. Especially today, the scams gets more sophisticated with AI and multiple videos that lead you to do certain actions without you knowing it.
So a lot of people can be taken in from this fraud, obviously. So what you're saying here is basically educating them and making sure that they know what is correct, what is not, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so got
yes.
it. So can we move on to financial inclusion in a cashless society? So
sure.
While moving towards a cashless society, how can Malaysia ensure financial inclusion for the unbanked and undeserved communities, and what steps you think can be taken to sort of bridge this gap?
I think it's not easy to ensure that the financial inclusion is holistic to the entire society. But I think it is a goal that is worthwhile to be pursued. If we were to talk about our Madani framework, I think the government is talking about raising the ceiling and raising the floor. And I think fintech plays an instrumental role. And when we talk about raising the floor, this is where financial inclusion comes in, especially for the underserved and also the underbanked segments. And this has to be boiled down to a couple of key factors. Number one, I think the financial products should be developed and structured in a more relevant, more personalized manner, so that these underserved and also the unserved segments, they are able to access these financial products in a more affordable manner, in a more accessible manner. And of course, number two is where different form of public partnership can come in place. For example, fintech players could work together with different communities to bring about the right solutions to target segments which have been left behind.
Right. So you talk about different communities, and bridging the gap, Wilson's, is it difficult when it comes to the rural areas in terms of reaching out to them and getting them to understand, for example, digital banking?
I think in terms of reaching out, in terms of outreach, I believe that's not the main issue in terms of outreach. But what is not easy would be number one, in terms of earning power for some of these rural communities. So there are two problems here, right? One is, of course, the understanding in terms of fintech solutions, and number two is, in fact, discretionary purchasing power or income. So without these two, it will be quite difficult and challenging for these segments to embrace financial solutions.
Okay, but do you think this should fall, in terms of educating the rural areas, should it fall under the government to educate them, or the banks, or perhaps even your association?
I think it takes the whole of the ecosystems, from the government, from banks, from the private sectors as well.
Okay, so can we move on before we go for a break, positioning Malaysia as a regional leader, right? So now Malaysia ranks second in Southeast Asia for cashless payment adoption. So how can this achievement be leveraged to position Malaysia as a leader in the regional digital payments landscape?
We are definitely a leader in terms of fintech in this region. Of course, in terms of payment development, Malaysia has been actively involved in a few regional initiatives. For example, Project Nexus, which allows cross-border remittances connectivity, allowing Malaysians to just use our e-wallet to transact overseas in Thailand, Singapore, and a few other markets. But this is actually also part of a bigger consideration as well. In fact, Malaysia has been largely underrated in the region. A lot of people did not realize that Malaysia is actually at the forefront of fintech innovations. Our regulators, both BNM and Securities Commission of Malaysia, SC, they have come out with forward-thinking policies. We have the muscles memory, so to speak, a lot of talents who have built regional financial services providers in the past. And these are all of the good factors that can help shape Malaysia to be a leader in the fintech space.
Okay, Wilson, we've got to go for a final break. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. We're talking to Wilson Bay, President of the Fintech Association of Malaysia. Welcome back to Money Matters. We're talking to Wilson Bay, President of the Fintech Association of Malaysia. Now, can we move on to talking about blockchain and AI in fintech? Obviously, that's a new buzzword. Technologies like blockchain and artificial intelligence are changing the fintech space. How are these innovations being applied to digital payments in Malaysia, and what potential do they have in shaping the future of payments?
Artificial intelligence and blockchain are two powerful technologies that could reshape the financial services industry. And particularly in the payment space, I believe for AI, it has the ability to help understand the consumer behavior and also consumer needs even better when it comes to payment, so that the financial services could be curated in a more accurate, personalized manner. And when it comes to blockchain, or rather the technology beneath blockchain, distributed ledger technology, it could help the payment system to be developed and built in a more secured manner. One of the key developments in this country that I'm personally very excited is on the open finance framework, open finance initiative. It has the ability to really transform how we look into financial services. Imagine in the future, we do not have to make multiple submissions when it comes to applying for loans from different banks. There will be one center source of credits or information that we can rely on. It will make the entire process of getting financial products to be even more delightful.
Looking at how payments are done, from what I know and what I've seen, like, for example, in China, the technology is where you don't even have to use your phone for a QR code. You can use your hand for them to scan, and then it will be basically registered for payment. So we should be in line for getting that done also in Malaysia.
Exactly, and this is where other technologies such as facial recognitions and digital ID, which has been the work, come into play as well.
Okay, so can we move on to adapting regulatory frameworks for fintech? So, as you mentioned just now, the fintech industry is evolving rapidly, right? So, is Malaysia's regulatory framework keeping up with the changes? And how can regulators better balance innovation with consumer protection?
For Malaysia, we are definitely progressing positively. Through the Fintech Association, we work very closely with the regulators to bring about some of the key developments to the industry, and at the same time to bring forth feedback from the industry to the regulators when it comes to the latest exposure drafts, policy documents. And what we are positive about the latest development is that the regulators are also taking the approach when it comes to innovation. They are encouraging innovation to take place, especially responsible innovations, which can make financial services to be more accessible, but of course at the same time with the protections to be given to consumers. And therefore, there are key terms such as proportionality, parity, and neutrality. When these key principles are applied to new form of innovations, whether it's in digital banking, with digital insurance, where there is also a new framework that has been launched. There will be new digital insurance players in Malaysia. All of these would further strengthen Malaysia as a leading fintech market in this region. Okay,
so you talked about the digital banking just now. So basically the main challenges of digital banking in Malaysia, would you say it's cybersecurity or lack of customer readiness in learning this?
I think the key challenge is not about lack of customers or cybersecurity. To me, these are the given. Of course, the cybersecurity has to be intact before they can even go live. There will be continuous supervisions. In terms of customer behavior and education, it is an issue not is purely fronted or faced by the digital banks. I believe the key will be the differentiation or the key value propositions that are introduced by digital banks. How can they ensure that the digital banking solutions are more effective than traditional banking? How can they ensure that the entire user journey is more friendly compared to traditional banking? And more importantly, how can they build trust so that different generations, not just the Gen Y, Gen Z, but the older generations can embrace digital banking as well?
Right. Okay, now let's move on to sort of tying up to what you said, central bank digital currencies, right? CBDCs. So many countries, of course, are exploring this. So what is Malaysia's stance on CBDCs, and is there potential for their implementation in the near future?
Sure. CBDC is, of course, built upon the blockchain technology. From the public available information, the central bank stance is that they continue to research further into CBDC, especially in the wholesale industry, in the wholesale CBDC usage. because this will be important, and there could be possible use cases for wholesale transactions, payments, locally and regionally. However, for retail CBDC, the stand is that our existing infrastructure, the payment and also the banking infrastructure, is already efficient and sufficient enough.
Okay. So, final question before we go. So, the main issues of fintech in Malaysia, because you already mentioned a few. So, would you say, because you already mentioned that the regulatory is important, right?
Yep.
So, what are the other issues you think that we could improve on? For example, technological issues, market readiness, also lack of talent, perhaps even. So, are there issues that the association thinks that we should fix?
I believe one of the key things that we can do is to have more successes to come up from the fintech industry, to have more success stories, to see more successful homegrown fintech companies, to see more successful fintech entrepreneurs which have given real impact to the society. And the media and the different industries and stakeholders can also multiply these messages to send across, not just in the country, but also to the region. And with this, I believe that there will be more attentions to be given to Malaysia as a fintech market. And I believe that we have all the key value propositions to be extremely competitive in this region.
Okay. Wilson, thank you very much for appearing on Money Matters. It's been a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you.
Again, we'd like to thank Wilson Bay, the President of Fintech Association of Malaysia, for joining us for the past half hour. You've been with us on Money Matters. If you miss any part of the program, you can always stream it anytime on Tonton. I'm Zahir Kelvin Ong Abdullah. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.